Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Poo, in this episode 531. I am joined, as always, by my co-host Stacy. That is at StacyPan89 on Twitter. On our first non-victory podcast of the year.
Yeah, I appreciate the Bills following suit after the Eagles gave them the chance to be the last undefeated team.
I'm not saying this because it's like I actually think it's good they lost. I actually don't hate that they lost because I feel like it was going to start becoming. They do this every year, right? With the last team that hasn't lost, where it's like every week is like, oh, can they run the table? Can they run the table? Can they run the table? And I always think that's like a draining thing for teams.
And the last team
And
that ran the table lost it in the most
correct.
embarrassing, well, not embarrassing, but yeah, that was much worse. So
I don't know. It's a little bit embarrassing to like get all the way there and be like, well, just kidding. Um, yeah, I mean, it sucked mostly because it's the Patriots and it was a really stupid way to lose, but whatever. We'll see what happens. Right, we're not here to talk about football. There's a podcast for that. We are here to talk about basketball. We're here to talk about the Knicks. And before we do that, I do make a few announcements. First, Strickland has a YouTube channel where you may watch this podcast. If you are, and you have not done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.strick.land. There's a link that will take you to the merchandise store, and there's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name what we got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. $6 tier gets you access to Pod Strickland, the podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, a podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, along with Zach Blatter, and you get access to the Strickland Discord with conversation never stops. So for the tiers, is a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland O, the pod that I host with YC, where we rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to Strickland NFL, which you guessed it is a podcast about the NFL that is hosted by Constantine Metricos. Doesn't know that. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and a $100 tier that's going with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on our pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe. None of this would be possible without you, and none of this would be possible without our sponsor, FanDuel. They will take care of all your sports betting needs. FanDuel. So where it's at. All right, we're going to be doing a lot of FanDuel stuff today. But before we get into, we're going to be doing Western Conference over-unders. But before we do that, I do want to touch on the Knicks. They played 2 preseason games since the last time we talked. I don't have any strong thoughts. I think you can see they're working through stuff that Mike Brown wants them to be doing in terms of playing faster, and then how he wants them to read and react in the half court. I also think that they are at times kind of cutting into the same places, but like that makes sense because you're trying to adapt to a new system. But there's a couple of things that I also think that are good that we're seeing. I think we're seeing a lot more of Brunson. Like he's made it a point to be like, we want to get Brunson off the ball more. I think you're seeing that as a pretty clear emphasis, especially early in the clock. I like that they are putting Mikal Bridges in more ball handler situations at the top of the key early in possessions. I like the fact that he's actually driving with some physicality this year and actually trying to make layups. That's cool. I actually haven't seen him take one like annoying, spinning, turnaround, fading mid-range jumper. So that's good. And there's a lot of stuff they're still working on. I think they're still trying to figure out exactly where Cat should be, how to play off of him. And I think that that you're also seeing like there's an adjustment for Cat because they're using Mitch at times and they're paired together as kind of like the dribble handoff guy at the top of the key. These are all things that are going to come with time, and I think again there will be growing pains. I think you can see that it's also a matter of Brunson getting used to like, hey, I guess I bring the ball up and then don't wait 10 seconds before doing something. Like I think that's an adjustment. The only thing I don't like that I'm fairly confident it's bad, and I just don't know that I need to see more of it, but I feel like we're going to see more of it because I think Mike Brown likes it. Is this 3-guard lineup that he's been running a little bit of like Brunson, Deuce McBride, Jordan Clarkson. I just don't like it. I don't know how else to put it other than that. I don't like it. I don't think the balance is good. It's very weak defensively. Like, I don't know that there's any 4-5 combination that you can put on the floor that would make me feel better about it. And I'm also concerned, I guess. Not concerned. I mean, yeah, no, I guess I am concerned because I think that he would normally want to run that lineup, those three guys, with Josh Hart also on the floor. That's what he did in the first game before Josh got hurt. So like that's my one thing that I'm like, I don't know about this thing. I have I like I kind of am digging Diabu at the 4. I'm not gonna lie. I think there's still some like sloppiness in terms of I think he's getting comfortable, right? Playing with new teammates and all that kind of stuff. But you can definitely see like how physically imposing that group can be. I'm cautiously optimistic about what I've seen from him defensively. I'm like, I'm not calling him. I'm not gonna call him a plus defender because I don't think he's a plus defender. But I don't think he's like the glaring negative that maybe it showed out as in Philly, where he was probably more exposed because of their personnel deficiencies last year and existing personnel deficiencies, by the way. But yeah, like I think I've seen enough in the first two games where I'm definitely intrigued by where this is heading. I think there's some good things happening. Um, I am feeling, gun to my head, if I had to make a call, Garrison Matthews or Landry Shamet, I'd probably prefer Garrison Matthews. But I'm not, I think this front office has deserved enough, benefit of the doubt that whatever way they go with that decision will make sense. I do like what little I've seen of Malcolm Brogdon. I think there's a steadying presence he brings, and you know that's valuable, especially if you're like currently your backup ball handler is effectively Jordan Clarkson, who's a little bit more of a wild card. Um, so those are all kind of things I'm looking out for, and then we'll see what happens with like how do they open up the space for Brogdon? How do they open up space potentially? If they want to keep a third vet, how would they go about that? Is it going to be Dadier? Is it going to be Cole? Like, we'll see. He did have an interesting quote about Dadier that I want to read here. I don't know if people saw this, but I did want to read it because I think it's an interesting quote. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Here. On Pacome, this was after game 2. Or the second preseason game, I should say. On Pacome, Dadier's defensive potential. He could be a monster defensively. He's just got to play with a sense of urgency defensively and awareness every single possession. Every once in a while, he just relaxes, and when he relaxes, he's not using his length, his athleticism, and all the other attributes that he has that makes him a great defender. Obviously, quotes or whatever they are, that just feels like I don't mind coaches using the media at all, like to, he's not taking like a shot at him. I don't think if he is, he's saying it pretty bluntly, where it's like, hey, I think you can be a great defender if you commit to doing it consistently, if you put your focus there. I don't mind him doing that at all. I actually think it's like an encouraging sign if you want Dadier, or if you're hoping that Dadier remains on the roster, for him to have those thoughts about him and to express them publicly. So that was it. I just thought that was an interesting quote, and that was that. Tyler Kolek, I just got to say, has not been very convincing to me. And again, he's 24. He doesn't really have the benefit of the, maybe this is what he is now, but in a couple of years, I don't know. I remain very down on pessimistic on what I've seen of him so far.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, right? There's just not the upside case that there is with Dadier because the age, because of just the profile. I think there's a reasonably high floor still. We know he can run an offense. We know he can be in the right spots on defense, or try to be. And I think he can knock down an open jumper. And so I think this guy will hang around the NBA. So I'm not, I'm not feeling out on him on that. But I think the Kolek versus Dadier conversation we've had quite a bit. I think the Knicks are probably in the same position. They're going to trade Kolek first, especially if the motivation is purely to create room for Shamet. I do think with Garrison Matthews, that is interesting because they seem pretty high on him. I think most fans are. He gives you something that nobody else really gives you on the roster. Movement shooting, high volume. I'm not saying it's going to replace what DiVincenzo gave the Knicks, but the Knicks are clearly missing that kind of guy, especially when the offense bogged down a little bit. It's like having a guy who can, I guess, like a really good slot receiver, right? You see when it's missing. Is it maybe not the most pressing thing for an offense? Sure, but it's like a plug and play guy. That's going to matter. With Dadier, yeah, I think I think that one thing that always stuck out in his scouting reports, particularly when you're looking at what interested the Knicks about him, is he's always one of the first things they'll say beyond the tools is that he's very coachable. He's a strong work ethic. So when Brown is saying that, I don't think it's necessarily a motor issue. I would imagine the game is still moving a little bit too fast for him. The best defenders are rotating like it's second nature, and it probably is to an extent. And doing those things. So go ahead.
It also could just be like, hey, this is where I want you to be fucking like. This is the thing. This is the thing that's going to get you on the floor. Like, we're not asking you to. And to be fair to him, like I'm not watching Dadier and like being like, why is he like dribbling so much and putting the ball on the floor? Like, he's not really doing that. But I do think that like it's with him. I do think there's like this the realization of like you are 6'8", 215, whatever the fuck he weighs. Like you have to use that frame to your advantage, and that's like about playing with force. It's about understanding angles and leverage and all those things. And I feel like that's where defensively, because I think he does a good job of like mirroring guys, staying with them, defending without fouling. I think he does a good job. I actually think his rotations for a player his age, generally speaking, are pretty good. Like, I think they're pretty clean. But sometimes, even though he's in the right position, even though he's executed whatever he's supposed to do defensively, it doesn't impact the play as much as it should because he's not playing with the necessary level of physicality. But then there are other times you see him, and he does play with that. I mean, he had 2 really, really nice offensive rebounds in this game, for example, that he got through contact. And, those are the things where it's like, those are the moments where you watch it and you're like, okay, the level of force you just played with in that moment, that needs to be every moment when you're out there, especially for a kid who's like, 1, effectively playing for his job right now in the Knicks, but 2, just like wherever he goes, right? If he stays in New York, if he gets traded elsewhere, he's not going to play like he's not going to be handed some like 30-minute a night job. Like he's going to have to take, like he's going to have to earn it and take it. And for him, it's like very, very important, I think, to understand like, hey, when you're out there, like, fucking max out, really, like max out, because you're going to be on the floor for a max of like what, 12 minutes a night if you're lucky. Like it's important to understand that, in those minutes, you need to really, really give everything you have and play with that force and play with the kind of necessary focus at all times. And I think that's what Mike Brown is kind of getting at more than anything else.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I'm just saying I don't think it's necessarily a product of, maybe it is a product of motor, right? Because Prez was saying this in the Discord. There were times when Dadier would get really involved on offense in the G League. The shot wasn't falling, but you could see, he was getting his shots up. He was really impacting on offense. And then there were times when it would happen less. And it was a democratic offense. You don't want, if you're playing for a role, you don't want to like seem like I'm going to take over the team and tell Jalen Brunson to fuck off in the corner as a rookie if you give me minutes.
Yeah. And I think offensively, that's always like, I'm a little bit less concerned about that, mostly because I think like with him anyway, I noticed this in Summer League too. I said it in Summer League, was like, I think there are times where it's like, I get that like maybe there's some hierarchy thing that you're trying to feel out, but it's also like, hey, you're the first round pick. Like, go get the fucking ball from You don't need to defer to like the 20.
Dwayne Washington.
Yeah, like the 20. Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That's exactly it. Like that's the I couldn't think of the guy's name. That's exactly what it is. Like you don't need to defer to Dwayne Washington. Like you don't need to. And I think so. If he has bouts of like in the G League where he is jacking up shots, like good for him. Because most of those guys in the G League, I'm like, I don't give a shit about the development of to the point you're making of like Dwayne Washington Jr. And he hasn't played like that whenever he's gotten on the floor in the NBA. So I don't view that as like a, as an issue.
Yeah.
And
I'm saying it speaks this pattern of like, engagement that can wax and wane. I do think a lot of it is like, so I think it's less of a motor issue. What you mentioned before too, there were like what I first noticed in preseason and even I think when he played against the Hornets in the regular season, he's very often in the right spot, right? In those 50-50 balls. And he wasn't getting them. And I thought, maybe it's a strength issue. Prez doesn't think it's a strength issue. But I think also part of it is, there's a lot of mental energy expended to like, okay, where do I have to be? What do I have to do? You're thinking so much, right? You're not just able to. It's probably not a coincidence that his two most forceful plays were offensive rebounds, where there's not a whole lot of, thinking about where I need to be. It's kind of a go get it, right? And you can just play. So I think as the game slows down, you'll see that happen more. But I would imagine that is kind of what it is. You're thinking so much that even when you execute, right, then you have to switch to like motor, right? Whereas when it's second nature, you're just, this is what I'm going to do, and then this is what I'm going to do next, right? I'm just going to get the ball. So I'd imagine that's a little bit what he's going through. The Knicks are still going to have to make a decision, right? Because I don't think it's an easy one here. This is no longer the days of, we can wait on, I don't want to bring up Cam Reddish necessarily, but we can wait on a guy like Cam Reddish to see if it clicks, right? Because we're not in a rush. We're not competing this year. We can wait on a guy like, they moved pretty quick actually. But we can wait on some of these guys. We can wait on a guy like Toppin for 3 years to see what happens with Julius. They're now in a contention window. So do you move him for a guy like Garrison Matthews? I don't know. They're going to have to look at what his long-term potential is. Is he, the questions that you have to ask are, can he get on the floor this year, or maybe even next year? Because if he can get on the floor and give you valuable minutes, that's a nice chess piece to have. 6'9", 6'11". Suddenly, if you could put him somehow with Mikal and OG at the same time, that's a lot of length. And you want to play faster. Turnovers are one way to be able to do that, right? So they'll have to see if that's something that's in the cards for the next year or two, and they'll have to see that if it's not, and you're willing to kind of, stay with this guy. Is he the kind of person? Because then at that point you're thinking about the bridge to the next era of contention, right? At some point they might move Cat. Brunson's going to start to age. Is that your bridge player, or is that one of the guys who you want as a bridge player? Those are questions they're going to have to answer. I think like you said, they've earned the benefit of the doubt with respect to that. So, and I don't, personally, I think there's still a lot there to like. But if you think Garrison Matthews can help you this year, I get that argument too. You will have a decision to make with Daddy. I believe they can extend him after this season, right?
No, Daddy, they
have to pick up his option at the end of this season, right? For the fourth year.
They'd have to pick it up before the season starts. So that's the way those rookie contracts work. They'd have to pick up the option for third year now, and then
fourth year at the end of this, before next season.
Right, exactly.
So they have decisions to make. I would probably not move him for Matthews, but we'll see, right? And he'll have to show out. And Matthews is a veteran who has a very clear skill. And I think to tie it back, with Tibbs, maybe actually it would favor Dadier because Tibbs was, he's not the kind of guy who would play three guards together. And Brown clearly is, right? So the fact that Garrison Matthews is 6'3", 6'4" isn't going to deter them from getting him on the floor, even if he's playing the three next to, let's say, Deuce and Jalen, or next to at the two next to Jalen and Bridges. So there are points in Matthews' favor beyond, given his skill set. So we'll have to keep seeing it. They started Dadier. Some people have interpreted that as trying to get him to showcase his trade value to up the return.
Can I just say, I think that is unbelievably stupid. Like they're what if he played well in game one that was going to materially I don't know, like I get it to some extent, and I think that there's a reason for like the Knicks to even if they've already kind of decided like hey, like we're leaning one way or the other, right? Be it Dadier or Kolek or whoever the fuck that we're going to move off of. I think they could have a strong feeling that that's the guy they're going to move off of and have maybe things lined up and also be like, but let's just play it out. Let's see how preseason goes. Let's see how training camp goes. Maybe one of these guys will change their mind. Maybe one of these guys is going to play so well that they, their value as a trade asset completely spikes, and now we're going to get returns that are way more enticing. Like maybe that's all possible, and I don't think, and like I get why the Knicks would choose to play it out as long as they can. I also just don't buy the idea, and I rarely ever do buy the idea that like the whole like showcasing of players thing, especially in the context of like preseason, is somewhat far fetched to me. And I would also maybe say that like if your valuation of players is prone to being flipped and switched up on immensely by preseason performance, um, yeah, that might say something about like you might want to revisit how you're evaluating things. You're on mute, Stacey.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I don't know how much I'd read into that. It was a curious decision because most people are thinking it's either going to be Deuce or Mitch to start. Obviously, in game two, they started Mitch. I would imagine they're leaning that way. But we'll see. Kind of getting back to what you're talking about in terms of the general strategic thing. So we've heard Tibbs as well talk about playing with more pace in the past. It hasn't always come to fruition for the Knicks for a variety of reasons. I don't think it was solely a Tibbs directive. It clearly seems like they're committing to playing with more pace, right? I think to your point, the roster is not going to win by being the 04 Pistons, to put it lightly, right? They're going to have to put up points. They're going to have to be able to outscore their opponents. Or that's I know what people mean when they say that, but they're going to have to put up a lot of points. This is probably a team that's going to need to put up 120 offensive rating to reach their goals, and you're seeing that. I think the sets have been creative. Once that gets on tape, teams will adapt. How does it Mike Brown adapt? Those are questions we're going to have to see. You mentioned the 3-guard lineup that he seems to like. It's funny because it's funny because it was like watching the Eagles yesterday, like where, for weeks you're talking about, they're not feeding AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. The passing game sucks. And then they throw it 38 times yesterday and Saquon gets 6 carries. I don't think Hurts had any designed runs. It's like swinging to Mitch maybe in the other direction. We were complaining that Tibbs was obsessed with size and wouldn't play Deuce next to Brunson. Now you're all the way on the other side. The thing that remains to be seen there is, it's okay to experiment different lineups. We want him to do that. How quickly will Brown move off something that isn't working, and all of that? So those are the things that you can't see until you get through the season and the playoffs and what kind of adjustments he'll make. So far, I think quite a bit to be encouraged about. Before we move on, I just wanted to ask you one thing. Are you concerned that we haven't seen as much of the Deuce at the starting lineup? Or
No, not really. They did play. He did close with them in the first half, which I thought was interesting. And they look good offensively. Like I don't even know that they play that well, but I don't know. It's just like very obvious when you see it that those 5 guys together on the floor, it's hard to defend them. And really, I just like, to me, the concern of that lineup has nothing to do with the offense. Like they're going to score points with those 5 guys on the floor. It's a guarantee. Like it is a guaranteed thing that they will be a highly potent offense. The question is, will you be potent enough to be able to offset some of the defensive shortcomings that are just going to be apparent there? So we'll have to see what happens there. But I yeah, I'm not that worried about it yet. I'll be more worried about it if we've got 3 more preseason games. If we don't see any of it, moving forward, I'll be concerned. I also imagine that the primary rotation players will be getting more and more minutes as we go along here in preseason. In the second game here, in the second half, it was just, I think Deuce didn't even play. Clarkson played. Deuce didn't play. I don't think did Brogdon play? Yeah, Brogdon played briefly, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, none of the starters played, right? Deuce didn't play. I think that tells you he's in that mix, right? He's considered in that, these guys don't really need to prove anything to me right now phase. And I'm assuming Josh Hart is in that group too, but we'll see. I mean, he obviously
That's the finger thing.
Yeah, he's fully a bigger thing, and he has the back spasm thing that occurred in the preseason game 1. So we'll see when that what happens there. Okay, let's get into it. We're doing Western Conference over-unders today. All of these odds are given to you by FanDuel. All the numbers are given to you by FanDuel. So let's get into it. The first team, the Dallas Mavericks, over the total is 41.5. The over is plus 100. So for every $100 you bet, you get $100 back. And the under is minus 122. So if you bet $122 and you win, you get $100 back. I have the Mavericks as an under. I don't like the composition of this roster, even though it is quite talented. I'm not sure that the defense is going to be as good as people think it will be because they have a lot of size. I just don't know how complementary that size is. I think Cooper Flagg is a hell of a talent. I don't know that Cooper Flagg's going to come in and help you win basketball games right away because it's very, very hard for rookies, especially a rookie who is probably looking at a quite higher usage role than he would have expected landing on a team like the Mavericks because Kyrie Irving's out to start the year and might be out for the entire year for all we know. The other reason I like the under, on top of that, yeah, it's like an aging roster. Clay is obviously older too. Again, their front court is really talented, a lot of pieces that I like, but it's kind of clunky. And I'm not sure how all that stuff fits together. You're talking about, you have AD, you have Flagg, you have Gafford, you have PJ Washington, you have Najee Marshall, you have Derek Lively. That's 7 guys. And I don't know that there's a pairing of 3 of those guys that is particularly complementary on the offensive end of the floor. And I think there are question marks about how complementary a lot of it can be on the defensive end of the floor. Having size is great. And yeah, AD, when he's right, is a tremendous defender. We know that Derek Lively has shown in the past that he can be a high impact defender. I think PJ Washington has improved defensively since he's come to Dallas. I think Gafford has his moments defensively. I think Najee Marshall's a good defender. But when you're talking about matching up against a variety of opponents, is AD, this whole AD is going to play the 4 and we're going to dominate with size thing, is that really conducive to getting the most out of this team defensively and the most out of some of these individual pieces defensively? I remain skeptical of that. And then the final piece of this is the Mavericks control their pick this year. And I believe this is the last pick of theirs that they control outright until 2030 or maybe 2031. I think they have an incentive to tank. And I think that incentive to tank could increase as the season goes along if it doesn't start off as they want and they get behind a hole in a hole in the Western Conference. And I still think they have this, to my knowledge, Jason Kidd still hasn't signed a new contract. And we know that was a thing that he was, when the Knicks were reportedly interested in him, part of it was he might want a new contract. I don't know. I just think there's things here that I don't love. And if Kyrie Irving was healthy, I'd probably ignore most of it and think that, yeah, I think they get to, I mean, I think the line would be higher than 41.5 if Kyrie was playing. But I do like, I think they need more ball handling, and I like the addition of him. Obviously, I like the addition that he would, or the boost that he would provide them. I just don't know that he's going to come back. I don't know that they're going to have motivation to bring him back if he's only going to be back by February, March, or something like that. And yeah, call me crazy, but like, congrats on signing D'Angelo Russell. Like, I get why they did that because they needed a ball handler with Kyrie Irving out. I'm just not all that bullish on how all this works.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good summary. I think I'm a little bit higher on just the talent level that they have. I think we've seen some proof of concept from teams like the Rockets, where two bigs can work. We're spacing now if you can just pummel teams on the glass. I do think that's one area Flag can come in and make an immediate impact as the offensive glass. Plus, you have AD, Lively. Marshall has shown some ability to stretch the floor. Can you go super big? There are some possibilities there. I'm seeing 41 as the over/under. Is that what you said?
That's correct.
I think there's a bull case there. The West is going to be brutal again, but they have a good complementary style. They're going to be a pain in the ass to play. They have a nice mix of veterans and young players. I do think where I would lean towards the under is, if you're looking at the range of possibilities, there's a pretty substantial non-zero chance that they tank either on purpose or, we know that Anthony Davis has a pretty significant injury history. If he is out for some extended period of time, that makes that choice even more obvious, right? So how overt can they be with that? In the West, again, it might not have to be that overt, right? You can say we're featuring Flag. They still have Jaden Hardy on the roster. You're saying, well, D'Angelo, we want to showcase the younger guy, see what he has. I think that they're going to experiment a lot, right? Because they have all these young pieces that you mentioned, who they're trying to see what fits together, which can be an interesting season for them. I think I probably will put a higher, like if they play it straight up, I probably would take the over, because I like their talent. I think Jason Kidd is a pretty good regular season coach, and he'll have them playing hard. They're not going to be fun to play against, but given that possibility that AD gets hurt, and there are strategic reasons for them to not push for the play-in, I would probably go with the under too.
Yeah, I mean, I actually I don't know if we're that far off on like the talent level. I just think that the difference between them and Houston to me, right, is Houston has like, I mean, we'll get to Houston when we talk about them, but I think the fundamental difference is they have those athletic wings on the perimeter, ball hawk types, and I don't like. I like Najee Marshall. I like PJ Washington. I think those guys are capable perimeter defenders. I'm not putting them right in the same category as somebody like Amen Thompson, or Tari Eason when he's healthy. Like, I just think those guys are at a different level. They give you a different dynamic. I will say, like, I am a little bit interested to see Houston's defense. I think Dylan Brooks was a little bit more of an important defensive cog than he gets credit for, and also obviously Fred VanVleet. Anyway, we'll talk about the Rockets when we get to the Rockets. Okay. So you said under as well, right? I'm marking these down so we can revisit these later. Okay. Next one. The Denver Nuggets. That number is 54.5. I will let you go first.
54.5? That's high.
Correct.
They have a pretty strong case as the best team in the NBA. I think you have to give it to the Thunder until further notice. I'm not saying the Knicks can't beat them, but they still have the best player in basketball. I still thought that was true last year, even though I also thought Shea deserved the MVP. They've done a nice job retooling their roster. You have to say that. They've done it in a way that, for example, Milwaukee, the Dame trade, I think, was a fair swing at the time. It didn't work out. There's a lot of, obviously still have Jokic. Murray, I think, started to show his health improving, and got back to form a little bit. I like the Valanciunas pickup, as you can kind of still continue to play a similar style. They've had injuries, so we'll see. Gordon hasn't always been healthy, but they have some good pieces, and they have Jokic. I am still going to take the under because that is a high number, 54.5 in a pretty tough West. So I am going to take the under. I think there's still some question marks on wing defense. You have Gordon, but and Hardaway Jr. was, as we even saw against the Knicks, more equipped, but he's 33. I don't know if there's a great defensive team in here, and how much you're going to run, especially given kind of the age. I think like one of the swing factors is Cam Johnson. They paid Cam Johnson, right? Or was it just did they give him an extension or?
Cam Johnson has 2 years left in his contract, so he's good for right now.
So Cam, obviously went off. How does he last year? How does he adapt to a new role? It feels like it should be a pretty smooth fit in that Michael Porter Jr. role. Seems to be comfortable playing in motion and those kind of things. So there's a lot of talent here. I just think that number is really high.
The under, you took the under on that. That was minus 118 is the juice on it. So again, bet 118, you get $100 back. I'm going to take the over. I like this Denver team a lot. I think the biggest thing for me is Jokic has proven to be a durable player. The over, by the way, is minus 104. So more action going in on the under. So I'm bucking the trend. I really like these additions. The biggest swing for me is basically Cam Johnson's availability. He has
and how sustainable you think last year is, right? To an extent, like that was a bit of a career season.
Yeah, well, I think like I'd be a lot more concerned about that if he wasn't going to play with Nikola Jokic, who like basically you basically get the best version of any player with Jokic, which I think is kind of the reason why, like if just as an example, if the Hawks had acquired Cam Johnson and signed Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown, I would probably be like, okay, who fucking cares? But
we've seen Bruce Brown have
right. It's just very different when you're doing that with Nikola Jokic as your best player because of how impactful he already is and how much he helps create offense, easy offense, quality offense for others, especially a guy like Cam Johnson, right? So the last 3 years, Cam Johnson has played 42 games, 58 games, 57 games. For his career, he averages, he's never played a full season. The most games he's ever played in a season is 66. He basically is averaging just about 57 games a year. It's his average. So he's a pretty good bet to miss a third of the season. That is probably the biggest concern to me. I'm cautiously not that concerned about Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon. Like, I think they will miss some games, but especially in the case of Jamal Murray, I think the worst is behind him in terms of some of the injury issues he had been dealing with last year. So I think that's good. Gordon dealt with a bunch of shit last year. He only played 51 games, but the 3 years before that, 75, 68, 73. I'm, again, cautiously optimistic about that. Bruce Brown hasn't actually played serious basketball in like 2 years now, so we have to see what that looks like. But he's only 29. Like, he's entering his age 29. He's just turned 29 about 2 months ago. So he's not like that old. And I don't think he's physically washed. I just think he's been playing, in teams that either didn't suit him in Indiana or just a complete shit show in Toronto last year and then New Orleans as well. So I like that addition. Also, I think getting Tim Hardaway Jr. is pretty fucking nice for them, man. This is a team that had bad shooting. They did not have good shooting. They didn't have good volume shooting. Hardaway Jr., for better or worse, he will get up threes and he will shoot them at a decent clip. He hit just under 37% from three last year. He is just over 36% from three for his career. He's had seasons. I mean, actually, if you kind of take out the early part of his career, over the last 6 seasons, Tim Hardaway Jr. is shooting 37.5% from three on 7.2 attempts per game. I just think this is a guy who would it shock you if he had a career season shooting from three with Nikola Jokic? It wouldn't to me, and it's worth mentioning. Like when he played with Luka Doncic in Dallas, that's generally when he shot his best. So we know Luka creates high quality offense for others. I think Nikola Jokic is definitely somebody who does that. So I just like the additions on this team. The center stuff, like the backup center thing, will always be a concern just because, how do you? It's quite different to play anybody else at center when Nikola Jokic sits the Nikola Jokic. But I like them, and I think the other part of this too that I kind of like. I think one, I 100% think Christian Brown can make another leap, and I suspect. Let's just say I am cautiously optimistic about what Jalen Pickett can give them off the bench this year. Cautiously optimistic about that. So I like the over here. I don't like betting against Nikola Jokic. So if I'm going to bet this, I would take the over. This is not one of my favorite bets on the board for the record. Neither of the first two have been. But yeah, I would take the over.
Yeah. No, I think there's a good case for optimism there. I just think the number is pretty high. I guess the last thing before we move on from Denver, are there concerns about the coaching change or anything you think that has some swing factor there?
I am not that concerned about the coaching change. I actually think that Adelman acquitted himself quite well from what we saw. And granted, it was limited, right? It wasn't, obviously it's not some massive sample of games. But to me, the biggest concern for them was clearly like there was some internal strife, right, between the coach, Michael Malone, and the GM, Calvin Booth. They both get dismissed at the same time. And the team seemed fine. The team did not go into a tailspin. There didn't seem to be some huge issue with Michael Malone getting fired. I don't know. I think I saw enough that, is that a team that I'm not going to say the team coaches itself, but if Nikola Jokic is cool with what's happening, I don't anticipate there being a big problem there. All right, next one, Golden State. This is one of my favorites on the board. Golden State, 46.5 is the win total. I'm very much on the over with this. Very, very much on the over with this. Last year, after they got Jimmy Butler, they went 23-8. I think that is pretty convincing, considering they just had to put it together on the fly. I don't personally see Steph Curry as a declining player. I mean, yes, he's declining in the sense like he's not MVP Steph, but he's still pretty fucking good, and he's probably still a top 10 player. He's at least in that mix for sure. I think he is top 10 player. I think Butler, now that he got paid, as soon as he got to Golden State, he was a good soldier. I don't think that's going to be this will be his honeymoon season with them. So I'm not worried about Jimmy Butler doing Jimmy Butler tantrum things. He's not extension eligible until next offseason, so that's when we have to worry about that. I think getting Al Horford is big, as much as I hate Al Horford for being a doofus. He's just an impactful player, and he's still a good player. And I think that there's a lot of potential for them on both ends of the floor, but very much on the defensive end of the floor in lineups where you can play Horford and Draymond and Jimmy Butler together, I think there's a lot to work with there defensively. His screening, like how intuitive he is as a screener, we know what Steph Curry can do with guys that are good, like bigs that are good at screening and running dribble handoffs and all those type of things, right? We know that because we've seen it for years with Draymond. And Horford is actually a good offensive player, unlike Draymond, who is a Steph merchant. So like I'm pretty in on that. The Kuminga thing is weird. I don't think Kuminga has the capability to like nuke this team or whatever. Um, Melton, they brought him back. He's still not going to be back to start the year, so we'll see when he gets back. But when he does, again, this is a big if. Like if he's healthy, if he stays healthy, I think that he can be an impact player for them. But yeah, I just personally don't really like. You're basically taking the minutes that went to Kevon Looney last year, who, bless his soul, I think time has moved on from Kevon Looney, even though I think he's like, what, 29, the oldest 29-year-old in the history of professional sports. But like, you're giving that to Horford. I know Horford's old, and maybe he did fall off a cliff. Like, it didn't look like that to me watching him last year, and I know that in the playoffs, especially in the series against the Knicks at various times, he definitely struggled. But I also think that was a function of like Boston having to use him as much as they did because Kristaps just didn't have anything. So I like this Golden State team for the regular season anyway. So I'm pretty in on this over, and I'm actually surprised that the under is getting more juice.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they looked better with Jimmy. Looked a lot better with Jimmy.
So turns out that Jimmy Butler still better at basketball than Andrew Wiggins.
There were lineups I would see last year where you had Peyton, Draymond, and Jimmy on the floor at the same time, and your spacing is basically that Steph Curry or that Jon Snow meme with Steph Curry, like the only guy against the Hordes, and it looked ugly at times. But Draymond still has juice defensively. Jimmy, we know, and engaged is still a very good defender. They have good pieces off the bench. Whatever you think of Curry, he's obviously a very experienced and capable coach. And you have a guy that
I gotta say, go ahead.
And you have a guy, and you have an MVP caliber player. Maybe not night to night, but certainly when the playoffs come around, and certainly in the biggest games. So I'm pretty bullish on them too. The only thing I would hesitate on is they are, Melton. They still have Peyton too, right?
Yeah, Gary Payton's gonna be back.
You have you have those guys. You have Butler and Draymond who are aging, and even Steph has had some injury issues. It's an old team, so that's what makes the over less of a slam dunk to me. But I agree, I would take it. They're the contender status in the West, no, but they're right in that next tier to me, and won't be a fun team to play in the playoffs.
I also look, I think it was fun, or it was funny to kind of like laugh at them for valuing Podziemski the way they did prior to last season, and he did get off to a rough start. His season overall was fine. Like, he averaged just under 12 points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 44.5, 37.2, 76% splits from the field. Like, he was fine. He wasn't great. He didn't take some huge leap. He didn't become a star or anything like that, but he was like a pretty solid player last year. And he continues to have strong on-court and on-off splits. Last year, he's actually got a plus 7.2 both years on court. His on-off, his first year was 8.7. His on-off last year was 6.5. Like, this is now about 3,684 minutes that he's played in 2 years in the NBA, where he's a strong on-court positive. And is some of that influenced by like he gets to play with Steph a bunch? Sure, I'm sure it does. But like, everybody on the team has that benefit. Not everybody on the team has shown the ability to kind of consistently play in some of their best lineups. So I think that he's a guy that has the potential to take another step for them. I don't want to say a leap, because I think a leap always to me, a leap means like you're completely elevating to a higher level. I'm not sure that that's the case, but I do think that he can take a step in the right direction and be a little bit more effective, maybe be able to do a little bit more with the ball in his hands, be a little bit more of a versatile offensive player for them. But yeah, I think this team is good, and I don't really get this number. I think it's low. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if Steph gets injured and he's out for a long period of time, that changes everything. But that can be said for almost any team in the NBA with a star player. So,
I do want to get back to this. One, how do you feel like Jonathan is coming along? I mean, do you think that if it works out, is his role going to change much? They still have Moody. I'll also quiz you real quick. They have a former Knick on the team. Do you know who that is?
Can I get in?
Knick draft pick.
Oh, Kevin Knox. That's right.
Yeah,
no,
I mean, you see Kuminga and Moody playing, because you mentioned pods, and I do agree with you. I think there's some upside there, but
Moody is a little bit disappointing to me. Like, I really liked him at the time of the draft anyway. And he's kind of blah, man. He doesn't every time you're ready for him to take some type of step, it doesn't really happen for him. He's not bad. He's a functional player. But that's just kind of what he is so far. Maybe he's not 24 yet. He turns 24 this season. He's actually still got time here, right? We've seen guys take leaps in their mid 20s and stuff like that. Maybe that's on the board, maybe that's on the table for him. But he's a career 37 and he's a career just around 37% 3-point shooting. He's 45 from the field. He's a good player. He's a useful player. I don't know that I buy that there's any type of real upside with him moving forward, not in a significant way anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can be more of a lockdown defender. Maybe, one of the things with him coming out of college was his rebounding. Maybe he can be more of an impact rebounder or weapon on the glass. We'll have to see. But he's fine. He's fine. The contract they have him on is pretty good. So I wouldn't be worried about him. I just don't know that I project anything major from him. With Kuminga, who knows, man? Whatever. I don't know that he even will be on this team by the end of the year. It would not surprise me at all if he is a player that they look to use as a trade asset versus anything else, more so than anything else. So,
you don't think it'll be a coming out party?
I do not. No, I do not. All right. Let's move on to the next one. This is the Houston Rockets at 52.5. The over and the under are both at -110. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. What do you think?
Sorry, which team again?
The Houston Rockets.
I like this team quite a bit. And you said the over-under was what? Sorry.
52.5.
I'm still going to go under. I do think losing Van Fleet is a pretty big hit for them. I think I have a feeling where you're going to go under with this, and we're going to agree. But I still believe Kevin Durant is one of the
Hitler? Yes.
top 15 players. Most people are going to say top 10, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. They have a lot of length. They're going to be a pain in the ass to play with. They're young. There's the possibility Amen takes a leap, but the spacing is going to be problematic. Without Van Fleet, really was the guy I think that elevated them to contender status. So I'm going to take the under there.
I am pretty conflicted on this one. I took the under, which actually has almost nothing to do with Kevin Durant, by the way. And I don't mean that negatively. I'm saying the only reason I'm taking the under here is because of Fred VanVleet getting hurt. I think that is a really significant injury for them. Kevin Durant can still get his numbers as well as anybody can get their numbers. How much he elevates the guys around him as an offensive centerpiece, I think is a little bit more circumspect. I know that the record with and without Durant last year for the Suns was like the record with him was fantastic. The record without him, not so much. So I'm not suggesting that he is has no value or anything like that. But I do think that it's easier probably to move the needle on a team that was as bereft of any type of quality depth as the Suns than it is to do that for him to mean as much to the Rockets. And the other piece of it is simply that you know it's clunky. Like it's just clunky without Van Vliet. You know, their half court initiation is not going to be great. And so what they're going to start Reed Shepard a point. Like I know people love Amen Thompson, and I think Amen Thompson, I think the world of him, and he's a fantastic player, a really really exciting talent. As a half court initiator, I'm with it, especially on a team that doesn't have great spacing to begin with. I don't know that I'm that bullish on him being able to fill that void right this second. Ditto for Reed Shepard, who, if we're going to put our cards on the table, like was pretty fucking bad last year in the minutes that he even got in the NBA. It's not great. I'm not the biggest Aaron Holiday fan as a point guard. I don't know if you are. I think if you are, you might be the only one. And then it's like, look, the team they got talent and they're exciting, but it's like all kind of, it's a little bit clunky to me. It is like Şengün and Durant, like, not that they can't play off of each other, but it's not a seamless fit, especially because Durant wants to play in the mid range so much. Jabari Smith, I don't mind the extension they gave him, but like, he's got a lot to prove in his career to date. Tari Eason, can he stay on the floor? Right? He's had a bunch of injuries. Like, he's really, really talented. Obviously, I think he's a player that basically everybody agrees is not just useful, but also like has the potential to be a high end difference maker if he can just stay on the floor. But he's missed quite a bit of time the last couple of years. He only played 22 games in 2022 in 23-24, and then last year he played 57. He's had some lower muscle injuries and stuff like that. Those are always a little bit concerning to me. So I don't know, like that's that. I think their depth is a little bit overrated in terms of how deep they really are on the wing and on the perimeter. Like Dorian Finney-Smith is he's not going to be healthy to start the year. So we'll see what happens with him. I like them getting, obviously Şengün is really, really good. And he looked great in whatever it was, Eurobasket, whatever the hell he played this year with Turkey. He looked great during their run there. I don't want to take too much from that because we've seen throughout, over time that players can ball out in those competitions and not necessarily have that translate to the same degree in the NBA. I think he was an all-star last year. Maybe he didn't deserve it, but he was really fucking good. He's been quite good the last couple of years. So
yeah, I think Schroeder is the poster child for that, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying Şengün is not going to like turn into a pumpkin or something, but is he a true all-star? I don't know. I feel like that's still something that he has to prove. And Adams is good. Like Adams is fine. He's a good player. And then they brought in Clint Capella, which I'm like, I don't know how much that matters. I don't know how much Dorian Finney-Smith matters really on this team. I wasn't really that enthusiastic about either of those additions. And I don't know. Like I'm sorry. Like without Fred VanVleet, I'm a little bit. I don't know. I'm just not as high on this team with that. With VanVleet, I would have said that they are a borderline. I think they're like I would have framed them generous. Maybe not generously, but like I would have been like, I don't think that they're going to beat OKC in a series. I don't think they're going to win a championship. Could they conceivably win a championship? Yeah. Without Fred VanVleet, I don't think they have a chance. They don't have a chance unless they make a trade, which, okay, yeah, they have the ammo to make a trade for some type of point guard. Good luck finding a team that's willing to deal you a, quality starting point guard that's going to open up a championship window in the middle of the season. That almost never happens. Almost never. You can get the De'Aaron Foxes of the world who are not that. And, look, again, I think it's funny to say this, but Fred VanVleet's better than De'Aaron Fox. And, again, good luck trying to find one of those in the middle of the season, even with the fantastic assets that you have at your disposal. Tari Eason is trade eligible as of now in season because or easy to trade, I should say, because he has not signed an extension yet. So we'll see if anything changes between now and that deadline, which I believe is October 20th.
What do you think the going rate would be for Eason?
I don't know, because it depends on what they want to trade him for. If it's just picks, I don't know. Maybe one really good first or two okay first, something like that. But they don't. I just can't imagine that they'd want to trade him for more draft capital because they have plenty of draft capital. I think if they wanted to trade him, they want to trade him for a player, and if they want to trade him for a player, they'd want to trade for a quality point guard. And if they want to become Dadier. And if they want to get a quality point guard, I don't think Tari Eason is enough to just get a quality point guard at the level that they want. So they got a lot of questions. So I'm just taking the under on this team. This is not even like a fuck Kevin Durant thing. This is just like I'm just a little bit. I'm more apprehensive about how big of a loss Fred VanVleet is to them than I think it feels like a lot of people are.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are assuming that it'll be a plug and play with Durant. Amen is functionally a point guard, but I think VanVleet is a guy I compared to Emmanuel quickly too early in his career, where he kind of, for some of those, there's a reason why his net rating, particularly with Julius and to a lesser extent with RJ, was so high, right? It was high with everyone, but he worked really well off Randall because he can plug in the gaps, he can space the floor, he can do some creation himself, and I think VanVleet was very important for Amen in doing that. Whereas Durant will help juice the offense for sure. That's not really his thing, though, right? He isn't so much a secondary playmaker as a scorer, which is I think he's capable and he's done it at points in his career, but I don't know that style will elevate Amen as much, which is why they were a really interesting team when they had VanVleet. But yeah, I would agree. I think without him, things are just going to be a little bit clunkier. And on offense, I still think it's a playoff team. But yeah, I think that 52.5 is probably a little bit high, rich for my blood at that point.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so I have the next one, which is the Clippers at 47.5. I'm just going to keep this very simple. I had the under on this. I was super high on them last year. I had their over in every which way possible. That was like I remember that was one of my favorite bets on the board. I thought people were way too down on them, and I just trusted Ty Lue with kind of the roster that they had at their disposal. I don't like anything about this team right now, and not because of their actual player talent. I just think this Kawhi thing is weird. I think it's weird. I don't like it. It gives me bad vibes. There's always injury potential with this team as well, and they've added more injury risk in some ways in terms of adding Bradley Beal and losing Norman Powell. I like their team on paper. I think getting Collins is nice. I think getting Brook Lopez is really cool. They have the ability to play big. They have the ability to play 5 out, small, however you want to put it. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't like the vibes. I don't like the vibes, and for that reason, I'm going with the under. That's it. That's the extent of my logic. This is not a bet I would take, by the way. I would not touch this line. I don't feel good about betting this team at all. So, cards on the table. But I don't like the vibes at all. I think there's just bad things going on here, and that Kawhi thing can just linger and linger and linger and linger and linger, and feels not great to be betting on this.
Yeah, I mean, there could be games where he's just a no-show, right? And you lose the game because of that. I think
the question is how much they want to aspire to win.
You just got to plant seeds during the regular season, and they bloom into trees at the end. I mean, I think for me, this is always a team I hate to bet because just with you never know what Kawhi's injury situation is going to be. I think they have a great coach who gets them to outperform. I think I think there are many teams where acquiring Bradley Beal, I think, could be a disaster. I think Ty Lue's a guy who can make that work and get more out of Beal than you've seen the last few years. But I would probably, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's a very good team, well coached. You know, they may be maxed out in some ways. I do think the West is going to be tough again. I would agree with you. I'd take the under, and I would also agree that it's just a high variance thing. We have no idea how a lot of this is going to play out, and even if he doesn't miss a game because of the allegations, or they get docked, there's going to be distractions. Again, if you're a Clippers fan or if you're bullish on them, the optimism is they have a very good coach who can handle that. But remains to be seen. Geez, apparently there's a WAPO article, Washington Post, sorry, about that's titled "The Clippers Are the Worst." Maybe Bezos is going after his business rival. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's true. The journalistic integrity of the Washington Post is unquestioned, and I mean that very sincerely, of course. Okay, next one. By the way, the juice on that Clippers under is minus 112. So there you go. Okay, Lakers. Next one, 49.5. I took the over on this. I gotta say, I don't feel great about this one. On paper, it feels like that should be quite straightforward for them. They won 50 last year, and obviously they had a very weird season with the crazy Luka trade in the middle and variety of things going on. Their center position does not fill me with a ton of confidence if their plan is platooning DeAndre Ayton and Jackson Hayes. Just not maybe my favorite center platoon in the league, to say the least. JJ Redick seems like a fine coach. Don't know that we can say much more beyond that. I would say I would not worry about him being some type of major obstacle to the goal of winning 50 games this year.
He's amplified by ChatGPT. He's basically a cyborg, Shwin.
Yeah, when we know that ChatGPT is always right, as has always been famously proven. Just ask like Sam Altman. But yeah, like I don't know, the LeBron thing, is he gonna do any passive aggressive bullshit this year, or is he just gonna play nice and try to, max out what this team can be? Probably a little bit of both. He'll always have some weird month in the middle of the season where he decides like, all right, I need to start being cryptic on social media and
AJ Browning.
Yeah, well, wide receivers are in they're in their own tier. So that's the Luka thing. Like this entire fucking offseason of like Luka has discovered fitness, and we need to praise him for it, has been mildly annoying to say the least. I don't even care. I think he was almost definitely going to be in better shape than he was to start last season, because to be in worse shape would be very challenging. And if he's on the floor, he's obviously going to produce at a high level. So we know that. I think Austin Reeves is going to be very, very motivated to play well this year. He's entering a contract year, or he's in a contract year. He's playing for, he wants a big money deal, so he'll be very motivated. That's a good thing, or it can be a good thing. It could also be a bad thing if that involves him stepping on people's toes and maybe going above what is being asked of him at times at the expense of others. So that's something to keep your eye on. Getting Laravia was cool. I'm not that high on the depth. I think Laravia is fine. I think Hachimura is pretty solid. And that's about that. But it's the Lakers. And if you have Luka, you have LeBron, and you have Reeves, I feel like you have a pretty good chance to win a lot of regular season games, if nothing else. And if they won 50 last year, I will trust them to win 50 again this year. So I am going with the over on this one.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting because there were a lot of issues right last year. I didn't realize they won 50 games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tempted to take the under, just because I think this is a very good team. I think there are issues on defense that just who's their point? Like, where's their point of attack defense? Where's their rim protection? You have LeBron and Luka, which means that they're a dark horse to make it all the way. I mean, those guys click for a playoff
Are
run.
they?
Are they?
How can I forget? How can I forget? They got Marcus Smart. Of course, they're fine. Everything's fixed.
Yeah, I mean, it would be crazy if he won with the Lakers. That would be a certain city on the other side of I-90 will, I'm sure, love that. I just LeBron since Cleveland really has had a little bit of a, I don't want to say mail it in attitude for the regular season. It's been, he doesn't bring it every night. Let's just put it like that. And he's probably going to be load managed at times. He's probably going to have rest days. Luka being in much better shape and, maybe having a chip on his shoulder is the big wild card. Like when this guy locks in, he is up there with Jokic or anybody else. You can say that there's stylistic issues, whatever. It's going to win them a lot of. I mean, Harden had those issues, right? Maybe not. Maybe Luka's not at that extent. Harden had those issues, and Houston was a great regular season team. So there's question marks with the roster. You have those two guys. They got to 50 last year, and Luka should be significantly better. So I will agree with you there. I'll go with the over.
All right, we're gonna have to start disagreeing a bit more. We're moving lockstep the entire way, except for one. All right, Memphis, 39.5. The under is paying out at minus 104, and the over is paying out at minus 118. Just in the to be open about it, just because I think this just came out today. John Morant suffered an ankle injury that has him week to week. That's been reported today. They also have Jaren Jackson Jr., who's still week to week. Zach Edey's expected to miss the first month of the season as well due to an ankle injury. So they have a lot of injury concerns going into the season. Again, 39.5 is the number. Stacy, what do you think?
I think to hit that over, you're going to need Ja to come back strong. An ankle injury is obviously not post injury and post suspension, he hasn't quite been the same player. Still a very good player, but it's not the same as a guy that people really were talking up as maybe top 15, top 20. I know you weren't, but clearly you'd be hoping for return to form. That's what they're betting on a little bit with that Bane trade. Can Jaren Jackson Jr. repeat what he did last year? He's injured too, I believe. So they're banged up. With the margins that thin, if they start the season with some significant injuries, that's not going to be pretty. And they lost Bane. And I don't know how many games they won last year. Looking up now. They won 44 games last year. It's I think between losing Bane with Morant maybe still having lingering injury issues, the question of whether Jackson can replicate, I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I have to take the under here too. It's unfortunate. The Morant thing is weird. It's not great. I don't look. They lost Bane. They got KCP back. I don't actually. I mean, considering that. I mean, obviously they also got fucking 4 first-round picks. They moved up to draft Cedric Coward this year. I'm amazed that you did not make some type of annoying pun.
I was
joke.
gonna say I don't think that was a bold, not a cowardly move, but yeah.
Okay, good job. Happy we got that out of the way. They seem to be high on him. Again, I'm always just. I think it's safer to assume the rookies are, maybe they're not going to hurt you, but they're not going to necessarily help you. So I don't know what you can really expect of him this soon. And Bain, whatever your concerns about Desmond Bain might be, he's clearly a plus rotation player. He's a plus starter, not a rotation player. Right? He's a plus heavy minute starter. So that's a big deal. They had issues spacing the floor with Desmond Bain. I don't quite know that losing Desmond Bain helps your spacing issues. So that's also concerning. And then, ja Morant is out. That's not great. If Jaren Jackson Jr. is out to miss some time at the start of the year, that's not great. If Zach Edey is definitely going to be out to miss some time at the start of the year, that's not great. Brandon Clark is also out to start the year. So their center rotation is a disaster right now. Jay Huff, obviously, like he was on the team last year, and he's no great shakes, but, it would have been nice to have him, except they traded him. So he's not there either. So, yeah, this is just a team that's very, very thin, very, very beat up. They have their coach, Thomas Isalo. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce the last name, so I'm not going to try right now. He didn't do anything to really demonstrate that he had some fantastic wherewithal to step into the head coaching void that was left when Taylor Jenkins was fired. And yeah, it's just a lot of question marks, not a lot of clear answers, all while you have significant injury issues, which this team constantly seems to be dealing with endless injury issues. So I will take the under at minus 104, and I will go with that. Again, it's such a low number that I don't love it because obviously they've had a track record when they're healthy of winning basketball games. But I also think it's worth noting that they had that track record with Desmond Bain on the team. And do I think that Desmond Bain is like an amazing stud of a player? No, but he's definitely very good. He definitely improved as a ball handler in his time in Memphis. And, I think it's a little bit, it would be wrong to just be like, well, they're good when Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are on the floor, as if Desmond Bain didn't exist at all with those guys on the floor as well. And I think he was part of that success that they had when those guys were on the floor. And without him, I'm not saying they're a bad pairing or that they're a non-functional pairing, but it's a chance it's not as effective of a pairing as it seemed. So I will take the under there as well. Next one is the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is 49 and a half. I will take the over on this. They went 49 and 33 last year and had to deal with obviously a very significant trade on the cusp of the season that changed a lot of things for them that they had to work through. They dealt a lot of injuries to many of those players. Randall missed time. DiVincenzo missed time. I think both of them are better acclimated now, obviously, than they were prior to last year or at the outset of last year. The point guard situation worries me. I don't love that they're going into the season with Conley and Dillingham as the point guard situations there. That's not great to me. One thing, and I hate to say, bring this up, obviously condolences to him. Naz Reid, his sister tragically passed away. How is he going to? Where's his mental headspace going to be at the start of the year? I think, and for however long. Obviously, that's a terrible thing for anybody to have to go through. But where is he at? Because he's a critical piece for them. He's a vital piece for them. And if he's maybe struggling, just to get back into the right mental headspace, that could be a problem for them as well. Rudy Gobert was pretty good last year, but I also thought he showed signs of some decline. Not drastic, but again, just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think I'll go the over here. Again, they went 49 and 33 last year, and that was with a lot more upheaval. They also had the ownership thing looming over the entire thing last year, which is not an issue anymore. And yeah, like I think that they have good pieces. They have interesting depth. The guys they drafted this past year are intriguing to me. You know, like I don't know how to pronounce. I want to be careful because I want to say his name properly, but Joan Berenger. Um, he's an interesting rookie. We'll see how much he plays. He's a center. They're obviously well stocked in the front court. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I like these guys too. I think Jaden McDaniels, you know, can he put together a full season? That's an interesting question because he's shown flashes at times of like being capable of doing more offensively than what he's maybe shown, but like he's never put it together consistently. That's a big question for them. You know, then you also have guys like, you know, again, like if Dillingham takes a step, that would be huge for them. But he's got a lot of question marks with his size. I just think that with Anthony Edwards there, Anthony Edwards is quite fascinating to me in the sense that I think that he is a tremendous talent and somebody who can be a top 5 MVP caliber level player. But I feel like people want to elevate him to that status right now, and I don't believe he's achieved that yet. Is this the year that he gets there? Maybe. It's always possible. He's kind of entering that period in your career for a player of his ilk.
What do you think has prevented that so far? Do you think it's maturity issues at all, or do you think that doesn't really bleed onto the court for him?
No, I think there is some maturity stuff. I think that there is, and by maturity, I just mean like, I think there are times that he doesn't understand or he's not. I'm trying to word this properly. I think there are times that the kind of rawness in his decision making when he's ostensibly running the show offensively can shine through. And that can be a problem. What I will say, I am a little bit nervous about some of the stuff that I've heard him talk about this offseason. He's talked about he wants to get in the post more. He's been studying MJs and studying Kobe. And we know that his favorite player growing up was Kevin Durant. I really hope that his goal is not to just operate in the same areas as those guys. One, because I'm not even sure he hasn't shown that he's as good of a mid-range operator as any of those players were. Two, those are less
for the release, so that's what.
Yeah, and it's a less efficient shot. We know that, and then the other part is like he shot like insanely good from 3 last year. So I don't know, like why do you not like we need to trade out threes for these middies? Like I don't like that. I gotta say, like for a player of his athletic tools, I mean, what percentage of his shots do you think came at the rim last year?
15?
17.5%, which is just not nearly good enough. And I'm sorry, I don't buy that. Like, well, spacing issues, but no, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't think that's the sole reason for it. I think he's content to settle at times. But guess what? Here's a good thing: if you're content to settle, but you take a lot of threes and you're good at taking threes, that can work out pretty good. Last year, he took 50.3% of his shots from 3, and he shot 39.5%. He shot phenomenally from 3 last year, and he steadily improved as a 3-point shooter in his career. Why do I want to take less of that to trade them out for mid-range jumpers? I think that's a big mistake. And
you're already playing with a very mid-range heavy guy, right? So
yeah, I would be very, very concerned about that. And actually, based on this entire thing, I am going under now on them. I believe in their. I do believe in their track record. I do think that there's something to that. Like they have overcome a lot. It feels like over the last 3 years, like every time that you think, oh my God, it's falling apart. What are they going to do? They've kind of rallied and managed to at least claw their way back into, making the playoffs, and then obviously they make they've gone to the Western Conference Finals now 2 years in a row, so they're not some team without a pedigree or without any reason to believe in them. But I wonder if other teams have made up ground and they've kind of stagnated. Randall is a big swing piece for them. I will say that. If Randall plays at a high level, then we know that he can, at least if nothing else, help you win a lot of regular season games. And we saw last year, if the matchup's right, he can help you win a lot of playoff games too. But
and he's healthy. I mean,
yeah,
that did for me. I always felt like before we traded him that there was it wasn't going to be his entire career. That there might be a ceiling on how good he can be in the playoffs, but he's not going to be the ghastly performances that we've seen. You missed the biggest swing piece of all. A guy with unlimited range.
No.
I do think there's a big swing piece that you're going to agree with. But obviously Bones Highland. I actually do think he's going to take minutes from Dillingham. They have a need for a backup point guard. I'm just not that high on Dillingham after what I saw. No, I'm actually. I think that DiVincenzo's very interesting there because what did he shoot last year? It was like 33% or something. I mean, on the one hand, right? On the one hand, like it sheds more light. I mean, obviously they were going to get Cat, so DiVincenzo is usually not the kind of guy who's a make or break thing. But he had an insane career year on the Knicks. I'm sure part of their evaluation process was, do we expect him to shoot? Whatever he did? Was it 40? He shot 40% from three with the Knicks on 8.7 threes a game. He actually did finish last year at 40% from three, which is interesting because I do know there are a lot of slumps. But I wonder if they can get more out of him, if that's an inflection point that gives them some upside. I think the quote that you mentioned with Anthony Edwards doesn't concern me as much a lot because I have a lot of belief in Chris Finch. I think he's a good coach. I think he's done a pretty good job of steering Ant towards those things. I think one interpretation of what Anthony Edwards is saying is perhaps more for playoff games, right? Where you can't just launch threes, where the defense is going to wall off the rim. We know that LeBron, right, had to develop a post game to get over the hump. So for those reasons, that quote isn't that concerning to me. In year two, I expect DiVincenzo to be better, and he did improve over the course of the season. He's probably not going to do what he did in New York again. But that's 3 straight seasons now where he's had 39.7% or higher from three on pretty significant volume. So I think that matters a lot for their spacing. I think Randall also shot the ball better last year.
He ended up shooting about the same. He ended up shooting like 35% from three.
Yeah, and yes, and that's really all you need from Randall, right? I do think the concerns with Rudy are well-founded but he's still fucking huge, and he's a very smart defender. It's interesting. Before we started talking, I was actually thinking about the under of this because if they got 49 last year and they had a pretty good resurgence, can you really expect them to beat that? I'm going to change my mind for the opposite reason. I believe in the coaching. I believe, I don't know if Randall is going to have the same year 2 jump he had in New York, but I think more comfort matters for a guy like that who needs to be in sync with other guys to really be at his best, balancing kind of his own aggression with playmaking for others. I think he's talked about that with being part of an offense without, kind of record scratching all the time. And I think he has the self-awareness and the willingness to do that, even if it wasn't always on display in New York. So I'm actually going to take the over on this. And I think the swing factor, I do think there's a little more upside with DiVincenzo and Randall, but when in doubt, I do trust Chris Finch quite a bit. So
we will see. All right, next team, the New Orleans Pelicans. This number is 31.5. The under is -20 and the over is +100.
Zion has also lost weight, right?
Actually, the over is minus 102. Sorry, not plus 100. So minus 102. Yes, Zion has lost weight.
It is interesting how there was this new drug that came out, and coincidentally, a lot of guys have lost weight. I'm actually going to take the over because with Zion gets you 32 wins if he plays. Like he is it just didn't play all that much, right? But let's not underestimate who he is. I am curious how much the Ingram trade impacts them. Um, but they have some young talent, and if Zion plays, this is probably a year where they're going to want to see something for him. And losing, and on the one hand, losing Ingram, not great. But I mean, on the court, I think it was a good trade for them. But it wasn't ever the cleanest fit. Does that help them, right? And just looking at the roster a little bit more, 31 is a pretty low number. I don't think they're going to tank. And they have some talent. They still have Trey Murphy. They still have Murray, DeJounte Murray. Me and you both have our issues with him. Still is going to get you some games in the regular season. Herb Jones, and then I was a fan of Jeremiah Fears in college. I don't think Derek Queen, despite the high pick, is going to be a positive player in his rookie season. I think there's going to be things he needs to change on defense. I don't love the fit with Zion at all if you want to play them together. So, I mean, is this a winning or well-constructed team for that purpose right now? No. But do I think they can beat 31 wins? Yeah, I'll take the over.
I'm going to take the under. They're in the West. The West is really good. They have a terrible misshaped roster that doesn't make any sense. They presumably traded for Jordan Poole to be a veteran leader on this team, which, okay, good luck with that. I'm going to believe Zion is going to play a, 70-plus games. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't care what he looks like now. I don't care that he lost weight. And I'm not even sure that him losing weight, we don't know how effective he'll be in that condition. Like, part of his sell is, the combination of speed and power. And if the power is not where it was, who knows how effective he's going to be. I'm not saying that it wasn't the right decision. It was definitely the right decision to lose some fucking weight. I just think it could be an adjustment for him. It takes some time for him to adjust how he plays and the effectiveness of his game. And also, this has nothing to do with Zion. The roster makes no sense around him. It does not accentuate his strengths. It does nothing to maximize his abilities when he's healthy. I'm out on this team. I think Willie Green's a terrible coach. So, bad team. They also have a terrible medical history over the time period, which clearly is like a staff issue. Like they're constantly hurt every year. Every year they have a fucking crazy, mishmash of injuries, and that it's what it is. So, yeah, I'm out on this team. That's it. I don't really have any desire to discuss them. I think they are really, really stupid, and that I'm not betting on a stupid team to meet the mark that Vegas has set for them. So that is my take on the Pelicans. Shout out to Joe Dumars for trading an unprotected pick for Derek Queen. I'm sure that'll work out wonderfully for them this year. Thank you very much for your services, Joe Dumars. Okay. Next one. OKC.
Okay, OKC.
Yes, OKC. OKC, 62.5 is the number. I have the over. The over is plus 100. They went 67-15 last year. Nobody on this team is even remotely entering a phase of decline. Most are at an age where they should be improving, if not substantially, certainly significantly. they'll probably be healthier than they were last year when Chet missed a bunch of time. But who knows? Chet misses time because Chet misses time. That's fine. They're well stocked to overcome that. They showed that last year when he missed time. And yeah, like that's that to me. I don't really have any. I guess the main concern would be like, what if they, they won the championship? Maybe there's going to be a championship hangover. Not sure I buy that with this team. Again, there's a lot of young guys that are hungry and probably want to, prove various things. It would not surprise me if SGA. I think he could probably talk himself into feeling slighted with some of the conversation around the best players in the league, and it feels like he constantly is like, well, yeah, you're great, but Giannis, but Luka, and it's like, yeah, well, are we sure those guys are better than SGA in 2025? Because I'm not. Other than Jokic, I'm not convinced anybody's better than SGA. And I feel like that could be motivation. Unfortunately, no. But that can be motivation for him. I think Jalen Williams, he had a shaky regular season relative to the way he had played the year before. And, I know he made an all-star last year, but to me, I thought he had a down year actually. And then, he was able to find himself in the playoffs and they really, really needed him to. But I expect him to have a better year this season. Same with Chet. I mean, I have no reason to believe why Chet wouldn't be better this season. And then you have other guys, right, like Kason Wallace, and we can go through the list. I think a guy like Alex Caruso is going to do what Alex Caruso does, and Lou Dort, and whatever, Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins and all these guys. They just have so many dudes that they can put out on the floor in waves, and I don't know that. What is really the argument to bet against them winning so many games? They have, over the last 2 years, they went 68 and 14 last year, not 67 and 15, 68 and 14, and then they went 57 and 25 the year before. So they improved by 11 wins from a 57 and 25 season. I don't see why they would be worse than 62.5 wins other than injuries. And maybe injuries will get them. Betting a number this big, it's always a risk, but it's a risk I'd be willing to take. I'm willing to take. So yeah, I like the over at plus 100. You're on mute, Stacy.
The thing is, they've already dealt with injuries, right? Chet, looking up how many games he played last year, but he obviously missed a ton of time. I played 32 games last year, right? I would imagine he'll probably be higher than that, right? And whenever he is hurt, they have Benedict Hartenstein to take his place. So, it's there, and that's without Chet could make a leap, right? Forget about staying healthy. Just playing more than 32 games gives them more upside there. Chet is that kind of talent who could make us an all-star type leap. I think there's room for improvement from Jalen Williams. This is a scary good team. And those are guys who are not even their MVP caliber player. They have defenders. They play hard every night. Is there maybe a little bit of a championship hangover where they pull back? I mean, Chet is going for a max, so I don't think from him. Same thing with Jalen Williams. Even if SGA, you mentioned chip on his shoulder, I wonder if SGA, the opposite would be, now that he has a championship, does he preserve himself a little bit more for the playoffs? But they just have too much depth, talent, and guys who are not vets who are going to mail it in, but probably still bring it every night. It seems pretty like 62.5 is a big number. Vegas is pricing in that 67 is rarely a number that teams reach, right? There's regression to the mean and all that. But I would, even accounting for that regression to the mean, I think they're going to get better. Like their top players besides SGA are going to get better. That's a pretty scary thought. So I'd agree with you. I'd go with the over.
Okay. The next one. Phoenix 31.5. The over on this, that's the numbers, 31.5. The over is paying out at minus 114, and the under is minus 106.
Do they own their pick? They don't, right?
Phoenix does not own this pick. They don't control it, that's for sure.
I don't like the roster at all.
Really? That's so surprising. They've done such a good job of just accumulating
you
talent.
know what? I mean, I do actually. I think Devin Booker is a better player than right now his reputation suggests.
I just love Kaman Maluak. I just think, how are you going to stop him?
I actually do like Kaman Maluak, but I don't think that's going to un-Jalen Green the team. I'm taking the under.
I have the under on this. I think they fucking suck, and they're in the Western Conference. And I think if you suck and you're in the Western Conference, you're going to have a hard time winning games. Yes, they have no motivation to tank, which fine, fair. But the Pelicans don't have any motivation to tank, and I think they're going to fucking suck too. This team is just it's fucking Devin. What is the lineup? Booker, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, some fucking thing at the 4. I don't know who the fuck it would be, and
Maluak.
And Maluak.
I think. I mean, they have Nurkic still, but I imagine Maluak.
No, Nurkic is gone. Nurkic is in
right. Yes,
Charlotte. They have Mark Williams, but Mark Williams doesn't play games. No, they drafted. Who did they draft? They drafted somebody at the top of the second round that everybody had a huge oh my god, we need to trade up for this.
Is he a Prez guy?
Rasheer Fleming. That's who.
Yeah, I liked him too, actually.
Yeah, I like him.
Not
if the sell on this team, is fucking Rasheer Fleming, Kaman Maluak, and Mark Williams are going to save us. They drafted some other guy that shot.
They'll probably start Nick Richards.
They also had drafted some other shooter guy, Kobe Brea. That's who it was. Who again, another guy Prez really liked, and as I'll always tell Prez, it's great that you like these players. I will believe they're good in the NBA when it happens, because rookies rarely are good right off the bat. So, yeah, this team sucks, and they also have a rookie head coach, and there's no reason to believe that they're going to have any semblance of organizational stability because they haven't proven that at all, ever, since Ishbia came in. They also have some, these lawsuits pending over their franchise. The whole fucking thing is a shit show. I'm out. I'm out on them. I'm making the under. Okay. Next one is me. It is the Portland Trailblazers, 34.5. The over is minus 106. And the over is at minus 114. Oh, no, fucking hell, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay, the over, again, 34.5 is the number. Over is at minus 104, and the under is at minus 118. Again, this is all on FanDuel. I will take the over on this. Don't feel great about it. By the way, OKC is one of my favorite bets on the board, so throw that out there. But I don't feel great about this. I think they're getting a little bit too much hype because of how they finished last season, which was nice. But I think it's dangerous to extrapolate, that into a full season, especially when your success comes in the back half. Scoot Henderson is probably going to miss some time to start the year. We know Simons is gone. I don't think that's a huge deal. I don't think Simons is a big needle mover for them, positively anyway. But Drew Holiday, starting point guard, I don't know. He showed a lot of concerning signs of physical decline last year, defensively and offensively for that matter. That's a little bit concerning. I'm not sure what Shaedon Sharpe is. I'm not sure they know what Shaedon Sharpe is. I'm not sure that Shaedon Sharpe knows what Shaedon Sharpe is. The center situation, I'm cool with. I love Klingon. I think he's awesome. Getting rid of Ayton is addition by subtraction. And, Hansen Young, he seems fun. Again, how good he is off the bat, I don't know, but he certainly seems fun. I think the talent is pretty exciting. So it'll be cool to see what he can do for them off the bench. Denny Avdia, he's obviously had a huge year last year. Can he carry that forward? maybe. I still not sure that I buy the shooting that much, but as an all around player, there's no question the growth he's made. But yeah, I don't know. I still think there's a lot of mismatching pieces, and I'm not sure it all fits together. And they still have Jeremy Grant on this team, who I'm not sure what he's doing on this team. You still have Matisse Thybulle, who sure he exists. I don't know what he's really going to give you. There's just a lot. There's a lot there that still needs to be addressed. Robert Williams is still on the team. Is he going to play? Who knows? Is he going to be able to play? Who knows? So I'll just take the, I will. I have the over here. Those are all concerning things, but I buy the defense. And I like Klingon a lot, and that is enough for me. I will roll with the over, even though I'm not that high on. I don't buy this team as dark horse playoff contender. I do buy them as annoying team to play every night, and being an annoying team to play every night, being competitive, having a bunch of young guys that I think they're motivated in the proper way, can overcome enough in the regular season to get you wins. If they could trade Jeremy Grant, I'd feel a lot better about this.
You're really clinging to their center improvements, huh?
Yes.
I mean, the real winner is the city of Portland. Every time I come back here, it gets more difficult to leave. They must put something in the water. I'm going to take the under. I think this is a team that it makes sense to tank. I think it. They want to continue to develop Scoot. They want to build a winning culture. There probably are going to trade Jeremy Grant at some point, and I do think probably that over under is pricing in some wins from him. But there isn't a proven lead scorer really. Henderson improved, and I don't know that they're betting on Dame Lillard coming back as some insane force, but I would tank and see what he has next year. And we've seen Oklahoma City do that, and this is a small market team that has a lot of young talent and is probably going to develop them. But I think that is not especially in the West, which you said is going to be very tough. I don't think that's an out of the realm possibility. So I'll take the under based on that. I do think they have some nice pieces. Toumani Camara is the kind of guy that the Knicks have really wanted, or Knicks fans have really wanted us to get. Would you rather have Chris Murray and Cam Reddish or Josh Hart?
Just Chris Murray alone, just because that contract, right? The rookie scale deal, you got to have it.
Duop Arith is a depth guy, but someone I wanted the Knicks. So they have interesting players. I don't know what's going to happen with Shaedon Sharpe. I don't think the jury's out on him yet, but I also think it's out on him maybe becoming a star. I'm going to take the under, yeah. And Drew will have some good games that wins you a game. I don't think he'll ever have the kind of bottoming out that a guy like Kemba Walker had at the end of his career. But there's just not a ton I love about this team. I think they'll defend. Chauncey has them playing really hard. But 34 wins in the West seems a little tough with just their talent level and lack of a top guy. But maybe Scoot makes a leap. Who knows?
Yeah, Scoot's definitely their biggest swing piece. The other guy, I love Toumani Camara. He's awesome. I didn't even mention him, but he's great. And yeah, him and Abdia on the wings is just really, really good defensively. So we'll see. All right, next one. We got 3 more. Hopefully we won't have to talk about a couple of these very much. Sacramento Kings, next one, 34.5. The over is -104. The under is -118.
They suck. I just don't like the roster construction at all. For all me and you are kind of skeptics of DeMar DeRozan, so I will say, he is a good regular season player. Even Chicago, he was. And Sabonis is still a very qualified player, and they have talent, right? I still, maybe the thing that could make me look foolish is if there's a leap for Keegan Murray. He's hitting 25, as we know. The Knicks have capitalized on players right at that time, so maybe Keegan takes a real creation leap. You see him go to 18, 19, 20 points. Schroeder was a sneaky good signing. But this roster just doesn't make sense together. This isn't a team that has proven that it can be serious. There is no rim protection, really. I don't know who their wing defenders are, really. Just Murray, I guess. And I like Keegan Murray quite a bit. I don't think he's an elite defender. They fired the coach who is going to win the championship this year. And then I don't know how much this matters. But you did have there is a distraction, right, with the team with I forget who the player was, but he was accused of murder from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the G League guy.
Yeah, and he was dating the owner's daughter. Does that affect the pro team? I don't know, but it speaks to some organizational dysfunction. I'm not buying it. I think they have some talent. I think their defense is gonna be fucking trash. And besides, I don't love the fit with DeRozan and Sabonis. They brought back Levine. We've seen that play out. DeRozan, Levine, and a offensive five who can't play defense. So I'm going to take the under.
Cool. I have the under for them too. They're terrible. This roster makes no sense. That's it. Like, I don't really know what else there is to say. Like, the roster is completely disastrous. Again, doesn't make any sense. The pieces don't fit together. They're not complementary. We have years of evidence that DeMar and Levine are not good together. How that works with Malik Monk, who you were trying to trade all summer. So how enthused is he going to be? Sabonis is still there. I'm not sure how enthused he's going to be. Keegan Murray is still there. They have to make a decision on him. Who knows what the hell they're going to do? I don't know. None of it makes sense. The team sucks. The roster sucks. They don't have talent. And nothing is coming to save them. Nobody's coming to save them. Scott Perry's definitely not going to save them. I just this
Maybe
team
brings back Mario Hazonia and Noah Vonleh.
Yeah, this team just doesn't really warrant any significant discussion to me. It's one of my favorite bets on the board is betting they're under, because I don't even think it matters that they're not going to be motivated to tank because they're just not good. Like, I don't know what else to say other than that. They're just not a good team.
How do you have so many high-profile people named Vivek representing us and just terrible at their jobs?
It's unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate.
I know that they. Go ahead,
sorry. I know that they actually did kind of okay last year after Doug Christie took over. They're 27-24, but yeah, I'm good. I don't think this team is doing much. Okay, next one. We got the San Antonio Spurs, 44.5, and it is minus 110 on both the over and the under. I am going to take the under. I don't love it because they have Victor Wembanyama, and I think he's insanely good and already probably like a top
10,
5, 6, 7 player. He's like right there. He's in that mix. And
you'd already take him over Brunson.
It's one of those weird ones where I'm like, I wouldn't take him over Brunson, but also like, I would bet that the majority of GMs and executives would.
I mean, it's tough to separate it from the age and the alienness.
Yeah,
exactly. How much he should improve even this year, but yeah.
Right. It's that's the part of this hard. And it's also like, who knows, like maybe he's a better regular season player, but then he gets to the playoffs and he's not as good as Brunson or I mean, not just Brunson, right? Any number of players. So yeah, it's a weird one. But yeah, he's obviously great. He's got to stay on the floor. I know his health issue with thrombosis seems to be behind him, and he spent a lot of time training with a lot of interesting people this offseason, but like he's just so tall and huge. Like that injury risk is always going to exist, I think, in most people's minds until we kind of see him put together several healthy seasons in a row. He did play 71 games as a rookie, so that's quite impressive, again, given his size. And he's nuts, man. I mean, I don't think, do people like realize, like, his first 2 years, he's averaging 22.5 points, 11 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 3.7 blocks per game, and 1.2 steals. He's basically averaging 5 stocks per game through 2 years in his career. The efficiency as a scorer ticked up in a pretty big way last year. Went from 56.5 true shooting as a rookie to 59.5 last year. Again, got to make it through the season. Got to see that last. But yeah, he's poised to be great. And aside from him, I'm not sure that there's anything else about this roster that I'm particularly enthused about. Take him off the team. I think
Fox guy, aren't you?
Yeah, huge. I think you take him off the team, they're probably the second or third worst team in the league. And I don't know that that's exaggerating it. Dylan Harper, again, seems like a player that a lot of people are very, very high on. Rookie, still figuring things out. Not sure how much he's going to help them this year. Their spacing issues are still major issues. Like you're playing Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, a bunch. That seems like a problem.
Harper is also a downhill guy himself.
Yeah.
So don't love that fit with Fox.
Yeah, it just feels like there's still a lot of moving parts here. Vassell is fine. Sohan's going to be on this team still. Like, I don't know where he really fits, except on Christmas Day when he decides to make threes. It's, I don't know. I like getting Cornette is fine. The other pieces, like, I hate saying this, but like losing Chris Paul probably hurts them. Like he played all 82 games last year, and I think he was their best guy or second best guy in terms of on-off splits, which I can check right now. So by on-off of their actual rotation players that matter, yeah, he had the second best on-off on the team. It was Victor, obviously, and then Paul. So I think that's a pretty big loss. He played 2,300 minutes for them last year. I'm just, yeah. So I'll go under on this, but I don't love it only because of Victor Wembanyama. The rest of this team, I don't give a shit about. I don't think they're particularly good, and I think they deserve. I think they're very, very fortunate they landed Wembanyama because if you look at the totality of their work in the draft over the last 4 or 5 years, aside from him, it is thoroughly unimpressive.
When you said 40, I was ready to take the over on this. 44 is not easy. What they win last year? 36, something like that.
Yeah, sounds about right. 1 second, I can pull it up. They won 34.
34 games. With Wemby missing some time, I have a friend who's a Spurs fan. He's like, just, man, Wemby's so good, but there's literally no shooters. And if you want to say we want to surround him with some grit and grind guys, maybe Castle and Vassell and Sohan provide you that. But then your backcourt is also not a shooting backcourt. It could be Fox. It could be what you were saying a little bit with Jokic. Wemby isn't Jokic as a playmaker, but he does make guys around him better. So maybe that rejuvenates Fox. You do have the Wemby injury concerns, and like you said, that is a much bigger downside than for any of the other teams we talked about with injury concerns, right? Like even the Clippers, right? If you talk about Kawhi getting hurt for an extended period of time, they can definitely survive that. This is a team that if Wemby gets hurt and it's any extended period of time, they're probably just going to tank. Having said that, I don't think Victor Wembanyama MVP, or if they don't win enough games, whatever, there is an outcome in which he is the best player in the world by the end of the season. Do you think that's true or false?
It's possible, yeah.
There is a world in which he's the best offensive player in the world and the best I think he already is the best defensive player in the world.
Best. Oh, no, I don't think there's any world where he's the best offensive player in the league.
But he can probably get to top 5, and then he's already, I think, the best defensive player in the league. So you're talking about having the best player in the league in a world where Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Giannis, these guys are still there. That's what, like, we have seen this guy literally just win games. They have remember that rookie year game when Brunson dropped 61? We were a good team that year. And it was literally Wemby and right? And he can do that. Christmas Day, look at the rosters when we played them last year. Now, granted, you can say that, but that wasn't even before the whole. I don't think Wemby wasn't guarding Josh Hart, and there's a good argument they should have won that game. He wins you games by himself, and he's going to improve again, I think. Yeah, I think I hate this number, and I hate this one just because if he doesn't stay healthy, then the bottom falls out. But if he does, then I like the over just because, like, I mean, if you look at his Darko thing, and I get people hate about, who wants to look at charts when you talk about a hoop convo. His line has literally been like straight up through his career. Like, he is putting up insane numbers. You talked about the stocks. Like, this is a guy as a defensive player I do think could rival Hakeem one day. And I know that's your boy, but that's the kind of potential he has. That's how he's improved. And that's the kind of work ethic he has. There's never been a question about that. I think, people who don't like him will call some of that cringe. That guy can win you games by himself. I'm going to take the over.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. Like I said, this is not really any reflection on Victor Wembanyama. My pick is mostly just I don't really buy it.
Yeah, they're horribly constructed around him. I agree with that.
Yeah. I don't buy it. Maybe in the long term, they still obviously have plenty.
But they have some guys that'll play defense and play gritty. Fox can get you some buckets when Wemby's sitting. So it's not they do have, in that sense, just Wemby takes over on offense and then they make it annoying enough on defense. Like, I see the path.
I see the path. I just don't think the path is this year. All right. Moving on. Utah, final one here. Utah, 18.5 is the over-under line.
Wait, are we talking about wins or?
Yeah, 18.5.
Utah, I think the other one is a little lower, right?
What am I? Am I missing a joke? I'm missing a joke.
It's an age of consent joke.
Ah, okay. Yes, I think that's correct. Utah, the window 18.5, minus 104 on the over, minus 118 on the under.
18 is low. They're going to be really fucking bad. Lowry's good enough where I think they should win more than 18 games, but they'll probably be tanking. They might rest him. There's a good chance they trade him. I'll go over just because that number is so low.
Yeah, I have the over here. I actually kind of like this one too. Lowry played 47 games last year and he was hurt, or he was not healthy for most of that time. Now, he's missed time throughout his career, but I think he plays more games this year. They lost Sexton. That might hurt them, depending on what your feelings are about Colin Sexton. But I just think the number is really low, and they went 17-65 last year, so don't put it past the Utah Jazz to tank away. I just don't know that they are going to need to do all the stuff they did last year to lose games. Like, they basically shut down Clarkson. They effectively shut down Markkanen at some point. John Collins had a mysterious injury that never went away. These are the type of things they did. They're going to play their guys now, and those kids have no reason to not play as hard as they can. And maybe they'll just suck so much that it won't matter, and they're only going to win 17 games again, or 18 games again. But I like the odds of them winning about 20. And if I was going to bet it, that's the way I would go. But yeah, okay. I don't think we need to discuss the Utah fucking Jazz much more anymore on this podcast. Fuck the NEH. Okay. That is our show for today. Thank you to everybody for listening. Stacy, let them know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
You can find me at Stacy Patton 89. I'll just plug all the great work at the Strickland. This is a good time of year. We got Strictly NFL for those who are still not into the following preseason as closely, but starting to ramp up all of our in-season content. So be sure to check all that out.
Yes, I will echo all of those sentiments. Thank you again to everybody for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, FanDuel. And I'll see you on Friday. Peace.